We're hopefully going to be that, one-stop podcast where they know they're going to come on and hear real information, not just the fluffy surface chit-chat. It's actual real life scenarios and real life feelings and stories and experiences and solutions as well. Just a warning for anyone listening. This edition of our podcast discusses eating disorders and drug use. If these issues are triggers for you in any way, we strongly suggest you skip this episode. If you need help or support for an eating disorder or body image issue, please call the Butterfly Foundation's National Helpline on 1-800-334-673 or email support@thebutterflyfoundation.org.au. Or for 24/7 crisis support for other issues you're facing, please call Lifeline on 13 11 14. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world, and welcome to another episode on our Lessons podcast. Good morning, hubby.
Hello, how are you?
Is it lunchtime? It's actually lunchtime here.
Thanks for cooking lunch, by the way. It was amazing.
Delicious. We had just steamed greens and I made like a homemade Parmigiana and it was so good. So we have obviously another beautiful guest today, and I'm really, really excited. I feel like I say that every podcast, but we are quite selective with who we have on the podcast. And this woman's story is wow. We're going to dive really deep into it, and it's probably one you might not have heard a lot of. So we're really excited to have her on the podcast today. Let's give a warm welcome to Kate Maree O'Brien. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you guys for inviting me on.
So before we get started into your biggest lesson, because obviously Lessons podcast is about asking our guests the biggest life lesson, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do day to day?
Totally. So I live in Bali. My passion is women's leadership and women like just really going full out in their life with whatever it is that they truly want to do and really being in the flavor that they are, not trying to be like someone else, but really owning their gifts. And so that's what I do now, but I've had quite a journey to get here. And I suppose even what I like doing with women has been my journey to actually claim that within myself. So I guess that's why I'm so damn passionate.
I love that. Awesome. And you've got quite a story to tell. I mean, anyone that doesn't follow you, we will leave all of your information below. But on your Instagram story, Steve and I watched highlights of yours, of your whole story, and it's quite moving.
Oh, thank you.
You've been through a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just like a recap for anyone who hasn't seen my stories, I had anorexia for 3 years and bulimia for 8 years, clinical depression twice, and really intense social anxiety. So when I'm talking about social anxiety, I'm talking about like, I remember one day in town and I had such an intense panic attack that I was hunched down behind like a park bench in the middle of town. And I just remember feeling like I wasn't even going to survive that moment. So, just like talking with people day to day was like really, really intense, which just goes to show, I feel, what's possible for us all, because I don't feel there's been anything kind of like uniquely special about what I've done, except that I just got a really committed determination to make a difference and not get stuck there, because I did hit such a rock bottom. So these days I'll be talking on stages with 1,000 people in the room and stuff like that. And it's not that any of that self-doubt or even sometimes I'll still get anxiety. It's not that it's all completely gone away. And I think that's one of the other things I really like to say is that I'm not here where I am doing what I'm doing because I feel 100% confident all the freaking time, at times I still have that self-doubt. I still, particularly at new stages and new levels of growth, when you step up and you do something like completely different, like that stuff comes to the surface again.
Yes.
For sure.
But I think what's happened is that over the last 15 years, as I've developed more and more capacity to be with the stuff that comes up and to be able to have it filed in its basket in the right place, rather than as it comes up going like, oh my God, this must mean that I'm a total freaking failure and I'm not ready for the job and holy crap, and make it mean something and then have it suck me into a hole. So it's been a long time since I've been in a hole, like many years, but it doesn't mean to say that I don't go through the ups and downs of growth.
100%. And I just want to honor you too for being so vulnerable and sharing your stories and the ups and downs, because these days, especially with social media, and I see that you've got a beautiful 14 or 16-year-old daughter.
16, just about to turn 17.
Yeah, wow. So with social media, eating disorders and comparison and all that lovely stuff that comes with social media. Social media is great for so many things, but it is having a negative effect on our younger generation as well, and especially women. I honour you for opening up about your struggles and opening up about your story, because it's really inspiring and you've got so many lessons to teach that can help women and hopefully prevent a lot going through similar. So the big question that we do ask is, what is your biggest life lesson?
Yeah. Oh,
it's hard. There's so many, isn't there?
Yeah, I would say that's that I'm enough.
Okay.
And now allow me to elaborate and make that sound decent.
Yeah.
Basically, for many years, Ash and Steve, I felt like I had to be more than what I was in order to be like something. Mm-hmm. And it was really easy to compare myself to people who were this or that or the other thing. And then there was this kind of background conversation of, oh, fuck, so that's what I've got to be like to be this and to be accepted or to be something special. And it's honestly taken me most of this time, even up until like really recent time, to get a new layer of, oh, so I just get to be this flavor of human. Like, I don't have to add anything more to be special. So then the cool thing is, what I started to realize is that I get to then fully play out for my dreams like now, not having to wait till I became something and became something special before I could like finally do those things and be something in the world. I just get to be that now because I already am enough.
Yes.
And then I get to go out and do the stuff that I really want to go and like go all in. And then the other part of that is realizing that as I'm going all in, stuff's going to come up and it's still okay. Like I can still self-doubt and still be fucking fabulous. You know what I mean? So I get to have that stuff and still really like who I am.
Love that.
That's awesome. In your personal development, obviously you've gone through a huge personal development phase in your life, and it came from a place of rock bottom where you decided you needed to change, I'm assuming. Where did that story of I'm not enough originate from?
So can I answer? I'm going to answer that in like two ways.
Yep, sure.
Scientifically, what happens is when we're born, it's like literally from 0 to 5 is where 50% of our belief system is laid down. And then from 5 to 8, we get 80% of our belief system laid down. And then by the time we're 12, we've got 95% of our belief structure in place. Oh. And yeah, it's extraordinary. And as a parent, I had to get over that, realizing that part of human conditioning is that we have these like loops and these stories that get installed. And part of the almost like the expansion and the growth of a human being, like that evolution, is that we have these like programs installed, and then as we grow, we come up against our own programming, kind of like up against the glass, sort of our own programming like that. But the growth of it is to come through that. So for example, I love the analogy of a tree. So a tree, as it's growing, it actually needs the wind to push against it to strengthen the tree and to send down like a deeper root system. So it's kind of like that wind is like when we come up against our own past programming. So for me, this whole not enough, like I grew up in an environment that was super emotionally unstable. So dad was an alcoholic and super violent when he drank. And even though now as an adult looking back, I can see the things that led to dad being like that. They lost their son. Their son died when they were young parents. Mm-hmm. They almost lost everything. Dad had a major head injury. So he was doing the most he could with what he had, and it ended up just being hard worker, drank at night, got really violent, right? So yeah, in that kind of environment as a kid growing up, I ended up with so much of my own stuff that was super unhealthy that I had to work through as an adult. But here's the thing, that was my wind, that's been my wind, that working through that's had me become who I am now.
So you coming from a place of understanding has really been able to help you heal your relationship with your family. I mean, before that you might have been blamed him for being X, Y, Z, but now you understand why they did the things they did, and now you can sort of be more compassionate, more understanding, and has that helped you and able to heal that?
100%. And exactly what you said, Steve. There was a time when I remember walking down the road, seeing my dad, and I crossed the street to avoid him because we had no relationship. Yeah. And it wasn't until I did the work on me and had to be willing. And I went through all the stages of huge anger, resentful, like all of that. Yep. But then it got to the point where I realized that while that was the reason that I'd gone through what I'd gone through with the drugs and all the rest of it, it wasn't an excuse as an adult to continue doing it. And so as an adult, I had to see that wind as the thing that got to strengthen me, but no one else could do that for me. And every time I said it was Dad's fault, that never did anything for my growth and changed my life.
Yep.
But so here's the interesting thing that I never realized was going to happen. After doing this work on myself and my sister also doing the work on herself, we got to obviously relate to Dad in a different way. And guess what happened to Dad over time? As we started to let go, obviously, the blame, he went into AA, he stopped drinking, he committed to all of us. And there was this moment, which I want to share, that we were sitting there and he said, which blew me away.
Yep.
Can we all hold hands, please?
Wow.
And this, you know, for an old 6'2" farmer with handlebar moustache, for him to say, can we hold hands, please? I didn't know what was going to happen. And as we held hands, he acknowledged our mum and said, Rowena, I want to thank you for holding our family together all this time. From here, I've got this, and I'm going to commit the rest of my life to making it up to each and every one of you.
Wow. What a man.
That's got good.
Yeah.
What a man.
And he has. And that's the cool thing. Like, Dad's this big, soft, gentle giant. He looks after my kids now, which he never was allowed to. And he just I love him to bits. And I have so much respect for him because, you know, he can't change the past, but he sure as shit is making everything with what he has now.
And it takes courage to own up to your, you know, your faults and your triggers and your mistakes, and then going in and dealing with them and really getting to that root cause is painful, you know, and that is something to be.
Definitely. I had a similar upbringing. But I haven't got to the stage where you're at. My stepdad, he was an alcoholic and quite abusive. He's not in our life, hasn't been in my life for about 10 years, but there was never going in and doing any work. It was just, he had to be out of our lives. So it's so awesome to see that you've come through that and out that together. It must be such an empowering feeling, and you guys must have such a special, deep connection now.
Yeah, we really do. It's funny because I would say he's probably one of my biggest supporters outside my husband, Henare. He would be the guy that whenever I look at Dad, he just like his eyes are twinkling with, I can't do anything wrong in his eyes, which is pretty cool.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. Let's rewind. So you said that you went through anorexia and you were bulimic, and there was also a period of being addicted to drugs. So what was the pathway? Like what started what, and how did you come out of it to where you are today?
Yeah. How do I even condense that one into a nutshell?
Yeah. Where did it start?
I would say, the anorexia and bulimia came first and was definitely this kind of smiley mask I put on the front. And then behind was like this, you know, like basically losing control of reality. And it only became apparent when I got really, really, really skinny. And I got to my own personal rock bottom with that. I suppose I want to also share this for anyone who's listening who is struggling with anything, because often what we do is we put on this mask out the front that's like, yes, I'm coping with life, look how good I'm doing, but in the background things can be slipping away. And I remember years ago when I spoke on a stage, the organizer of the stage that I thought was this extraordinary woman who was so successful, after I shared about my experience with bulimia in the lunch break, she said to me, Kate, I've never said this to someone, but I've spent the entire day just like fixated on what I'm going to have for dinner tonight. And I've had bulimia for 20 years. And I was thinking, wow. And I suppose it really reminded me that we don't know who's experiencing a struggle. So I suppose I want to chuck a couple of things out. One, just being kind to people, because we don't actually know what people are experiencing. So like kindness is really a good thing. And then the second thing is that if anyone's listening to this and you're really struggling with something, put your hand up and ask for help and get connected with help. The day that I got myself some help was the day that I realized how sick I'd got. And in that moment, it was like a door opened because I had a little bit of insight, like, holy crap, I've got really sick right now. I was throwing up blood. And in that moment, I had enough kind of insight to think, I have to take one action now to let someone into my life before I pull back and lose insight again.
Yes.
And so I went and I phoned a helpline and I got connected, and then that got me into weekly counselling for 3 years, and that saved my life. So I really want to say to anyone who's listening to this, if you are struggling with something, contact someone and let them in, tell them what you're experiencing. And if they don't know how to help you, that's okay. That's on them, not on you. Ask someone else and keep asking until someone knows how to respond.
That's really great advice. What was bulimia to you in that time? Was it a sense of control, or something, a place where you could find control, whether it was controlling your eating? Like, how did that serve you in that moment?
Yeah, it was a sense of complete out of controlness, and I suppose trying to get some control back in.
Yes.
I was, vomiting like 10 times a day. So it was pretty extreme and intense. But my whole world was kind of like quite a narrow focus on it had got totally out of control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a friend that's gone through anorexia, and she's well now, but she does find in stressful situations where she feels like things aren't going to plan, that those thoughts slip back in, because that food is something she can control. And she feels like she's got something together. So it can definitely slip in, I'm assuming, every now and again when you might be going through a difficult stage in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that I would contribute to anyone who's experiencing any kind of addiction is that I learned that when it got so bad and I decided that I didn't want it in my future anymore, because I didn't want the pain, and I started to see something new for myself, I realized that any time that I did it was inviting it all back in. So really that was the number one thought that got me through it long term, is that, I'd be, say, fine for a couple of weeks, and then I'd get this impulse to binge and throw up. And what I'd say to myself is, Kate, if you do that just this one time, the whole bulimia is back. And everything that comes with it, the pain, like your future's gone if you throw up today. So essentially I got really clear that one time meant the whole thing was back. And so that was the one thing that had me see through the months and the years, and then get to now where it's been 11 years.
11 years. Well done. That's an amazing story.
And in this process, you had your first little girl. When did she came along?
Yeah, I was 3 weeks out of finishing anorexia counselling. So I was allowed to stop counselling, but I was so vulnerable and so fragile. And then 3 weeks in, I got pregnant on basically like a one-night stand, like the only one-night stand I'd kind of ever had. And then I got pregnant. I was like, oh my goodness. And I remember thinking like I've just screwed everything up. I've not only screwed myself up now, I'm now screwing up an entire life, because I really didn't feel like I had what it took to raise a thriving human being. Luckily, something or someone else had a bigger perspective, because Bailey is now just about to turn 17, and she's literally the strongest, most thriving young adult I've ever met.
Well, look at her mother, so you can only imagine what that child would be like.
It's so awesome when you can take really difficult situations, to create new meanings, and take lessons to empower you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think looking back, I'm so clear that I got that opportunity because someone else saw more strength in me than what I did.
Yes.
But also, that was by having Bailey. It was like it was a new level of non-negotiable for myself. And I remember when she was about 2 or 3, looking at her toddling around on the ground, and that was like this big wake-up call, because at that point I was still a little bit bulimic. Right. But I remember seeing her on the ground, just thinking, oh, so I'm her mum, and her only experience for the rest of her life of a mother is me. And I remember just like the weight of that really smacked me in a way I hadn't experienced in the 2 years prior.
Yeah.
And I thought, damn, so her experience of being a woman on the planet is up to me.
I can relate to that so much. Like, there's so many times where I catch myself doing bad habits around Taj.
Who's our little boy.
Yeah. And whether he sometimes he repeats the words that I say or does the... I remember once I spat on the ground. And I was just... I had to clear my throat. I just wanted to spit. And all day he just wanted to keep spitting on the ground all day. And it was just such a big lesson to me to be I'm a role model, It's and you can see how they're just sponges, aren't they?
Yeah, they soak up everything.
Whether it's the way you speak to each other, the food you eat, your mannerisms, your
the way you handle situations.
Yeah, it's such a big responsibility. And like you said, from that 0 to I think it was 12, the development. That's a lot of years of being a good role model, you know, because we all go through, life's a roller coaster, life's ups and downs and challenges. It's, I can imagine how much harder it would be as a single parent too, in those situations.
Oh God, we always talk about that. Hats off to single parents. So when your little girl was 3, was it? You said that was quite a moving moment. Because we haven't quite spoken about the drug addiction. And do you mind if we dive a little bit more deeper into that?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, ask anything.
So when did that start? And were you pregnant? Were you just had her? Was it way before?
Yeah, I got addicted to drugs when it was just before I had that moment, that big realization I talked about, which was about 3. So I had a 10-month period where I was addicted to methamphetamine, which is pee or ice. And I got to say, it's only been recent times that I've actually said that when I had the drug addiction was when I was a mum, because there's so much shame I've held on that, you know. But it was like this kind of like accidental drug addiction, which sounds crazy. But a nurse friend of mine had given me a line of what she said was speed. And she said, look, totally fine, you know, it's completely non-addictive and just go for it. And I was in a really fragile place. I'd just had some things happen. Had a line, felt what I thought was on top of the world for the night. And then after I was addicted, about a month later, I found out what I'd been taking was pee. But it was interesting because in my head, I thought to myself, so my experience of this is not what I've been reading in the media. So I'm a smart woman. I'm just going to manage myself. I'll monitor myself. And if I see any signs of issues, I'll just stop it, right? What I didn't understand was the nature of addiction. And because I didn't drink alcohol because my dad was an alcoholic. I'm not going to touch that stuff. But hey, drugs, I felt really good on it. So the thing is, what I didn't realize is with addiction, the more you decline into addiction, the less insight you get. So as the addiction is taking over, you can't get that insight to go, shit, cut the brakes. So it wasn't until I was 10 months in, lying on the floor in my bedroom. Luckily, my mum lived down the road and she's amazing. And so she was looking after my daughter for a lot of that time. So Bailey had still just she was super protected. She was at the beach with Nana and doing
right.
stuff.
I was going to ask what's happening with your daughter while this, because I'm thinking if Taj was running around and I was, on drugs, what happens to your little girl? But your mum was obviously there to help.
Yeah, mum was there, and she had holidays at the beach, and mum knew mum was beside herself because she knew that Kate's just losing a grip on stuff, and she thought maybe I'm anorexic again because obviously I lost so much weight again being on pee, and she was terrified. She didn't know what to do. I was obviously shutting her out. And it wasn't until that night lying on the ground, and I'd been in a really dark place for the last month. I couldn't even leave the house. I was, that night lying on the ground, I could not move, could not stand up. My body had lost pretty much all function. And I didn't think I was going to get through that night. I literally didn't think I was going to survive the night. And that was the second wake-up call. The first was with the bulimia years ago. This was and it's funny, I was lying there, not funny, but I was lying there, and what I heard was out of anyone's voice, my dad's voice.
Wow.
And he said to me, kid, or the voice in my head said, kid, you can do anything with your life. And I forgot he used to tell me that as a kid.
Wow.
Yeah. Through all of his big mistakes, he used to tell me that I could do anything. And I remember just this devastation feeling of, I really could have done anything. And look at me, I'm lying on the ground with a needle hanging out of my arm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I made a deal with God that get me through tonight. I promise you I'll make something of this.
Wow. That's so crazy. And when you first started, I'm just so interested, and I'm sure a lot of our followers are, because I haven't experienced, drugs or being around a lot of people that have consumed it. Did it start with just once a night or once a week, and then it just you felt such a high that when you came down you just quickly needed it again? Is that how the addiction
yeah, exactly, once a week. And here's the thing, because I ended up actually getting on I ended up committing my life for a period of time, a couple of years, and I taught and spoke around drugs and stuff for a long time in New Zealand. But because what I wanted to teach was that what you see in the media, right, the end result of people on pee with picking their skin and they look that's actually not the experience at the beginning, and that's a real issue for perhaps people who may be a little bit naive around drugs, right? Who haven't seen it. Because when I had that first line, I felt like Superwoman, and like, please, no one take that please don't take that out of context. That was an issue. I felt good, but what I didn't realize is that it had me by the throat then. And so I just thought, like, I've found the secret. I didn't feel out of it. I didn't feel hallucinogenic. Right. I didn't like alcohol because I liked being in control, right? So I thought, wow, I can bake gingerbread biscuits. I can have a tidy house. I got the answer. Because I'm an intelligent woman, I'm going to monitor myself. I'll be okay. Right. But holy crap, weeks turned into days, turned into hours. Then it got to the point where I couldn't get out of bed without it.
You really relied on it, and that's where the addiction comes from, I suppose, because you feel that such high, and it's really fascinating. Like, I find it really interesting.
Yep. And you mentioned there was obviously a time where you're at the deepest and darkest, you're on the floor, and you made that commitment. What was the next? What did that look like from there? Did you set goals? Did you obviously you changed your empowering meaning? You had you started to have a vision. You created a vision of who you wanted to be, and then you just haven't stopped chasing that vision from there.
What was that next step? Hey,
it's such a good. I love this question. So I'll walk you through it. That night, I didn't have any vision. The only thing I wanted to do was to get through. And that was a deep commitment that I would turn my life around. That night I rang someone. I thought it was the same thing as I said, with the bulimia, I needed to let someone in. So the person who I let in was my then boyfriend, now husband. I kept him around after that. He's awesome. So he came around and, I said, look, this is what I've been doing. And then it was like, it was a painful, incremental process. And I think that's what I want to say, because growth and change is incremental, and it's easy to think when you're going through the incrementalness of something, this is too slow, and then to discard it and go back, right? So it was a lot of step-by-step moments. And like, I remember one day I wrote a post about this one called Just One More Spoon. Mm-hmm. And I was doing the dishes, and the fact that there was just a pile of dishes was overwhelming. And it took me several hours to do the dishes, because I had to keep lying down in between each plate and fork on the kitchen floor and catch my breath, and then stand up, and I would just do one spoon at a time. And so that was the level of incrementalness that I had to get through. But, after about 3 weeks, when I kind of felt like my brain was a little bit more online, I met with my mum, and I thought it's time to let her back in. So I met with Mum at a cafe and said, hey, Mum, look, I've got to tell you, and it was so scary. My heart was thudding. I was thinking, how's she going to respond hearing that her daughter's been addicted to pee? Ugh. And so I said, Mum, I've got to tell you. And I felt like I was going to be sick. I said, I've been addicted to pee for the last, almost a year. And guess what Mum said? She said, oh, darling, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, wow. The most perfect thing she could have said in that moment.
Oh, and I was like...
Connection.
I could hardly get my words out. And she said, said, sweetheart, she said, I've heard that's the most addictive drug. She said, and the fact that you got off it makes you the strongest woman I know.
Wow.
Well, you said that your biggest lesson is that enough, but it sounds like that reaching out, and to me, from your lesson, from everything I've heard, is really reaching out and talking to people. Like, it sounds like that's been the biggest things that's changed from your story. Would that be correct?
The counselling, your husband, your mum, your dad, you've really reached out to those people around you to get you through.
Definitely in the early years. Yep. Because I think, we've got seasons in our life.
I agree.
I would say that season, that was the lesson of that season for sure.
Yep.
That reach out, bring people in. You don't have to do it alone. And get support. Yeah. It kind of makes it think of, the tree analogy. We're just talking about the tree analogy with the wind, right?
Yep.
I remember as a kid, we grew up in a farm, right? And we would be planting these trees, and my job was to get these plastic sleeves. This has got a point, this metaphor. But we'd get these plastic sleeves and we'd wrap it around the base of the tree and kind of staple it on. And that was to protect the growing tree from damage.
Yes.
And it sort of makes me think is that, if you're in the season of you do need support, it's kind of like get like a sleeve to wrap it around so you protect yourself as you're going through. But then it also allows the top of the trunk to have some wind. So it's like, get the support as you're going through your own growth, whatever that is.
Get your foundation. I feel like the bottom of the tree is a foundation, a solid foundation, a backbone of support to help you flourish. I'm using my hands like a tree here.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
Yeah, I love that.
Would you say, so when you were in that, you've turned your life, well, you've made the commitment, you've turned your life around, or you've made that commitment to yourself to move forward, then you've started making incremental steps is what you talked about. Like in my head, it's like progress equals happiness for me. Like whenever, it doesn't matter what's going on, as long as I'm moving towards my goal or moving toward making incremental steps, I'm generally in a happy place.
Yeah.
Have you found that with yourself? Like when you were in that place, did you have no growth and no progress in your life? And I guess that's why we could have went to drugs. And then when you change your life, because right now, have you ever wanted to regress back to where that other, and why do you think that is now? What is the thing that's kept you away from it?
Not even a conversation in my head, hasn't been a conversation or any level of option for many, 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 many years. But I think also I've got so much that I'm so satisfied and passionate and excited. My biggest issue is I don't have enough time in the day to get all the shit done that I want to get done. You know what I mean?
Girlfriend, I feel you.
Yeah. Like I love creating. At my core, I love creating. I'm creating She at the moment. Yeah. I'm so excited. We've got a cacao business that we're, exporting around the world, and that's in its early stages. And we're working on branding and packaging. And like, I wake up at 2 a.m. and I'm like working out a new branding product. So, there's no way I'd want to be doing drugs. It would be such an interference. But, years ago, I didn't have any direction. I had a lot of this is the thing, like I had a lot of background. I'll keep it to myself. I had a lot of background stuff, right? Background, unaddressed stuff, almost like as if there was a closet behind me and the closet was filled with dirtiness. And I hadn't gone in there and cleaned out my closet, right? And that closet was pushing at me. Yes. And so to numb that out, one, I didn't have anything in my future that excited me. And two, I had not addressed the things that were in my closet. So the drugs in the moment made how I was feeling excited, and it numbed down what was in the background. Yep. So really the journey since then, and it has been a very, very, very long journey. So remember everyone here, incrementalness. Incrementalness is really a great thing. Yep. Like part of the incrementalness was really clearing out what was in the background of the closet. That was me personally. But it was interesting because even translating into relationship, Hinari and I have been together now for 15 years. And we also had so much background closet stuff to clear out in our relationship together. Because, you've got two people that come into a relationship. Yeah. Yeah. It's like it gets magnified, all your stuff in the background. Yeah. For sure. I had my stuff that came in, but also he had his own stuff. We grew up in a very similar kind of an upbringing. So he had a lot of the same experiences. And if you can imagine, I came into this relationship like no man will ever treat me like that. Yeah. Yes. Well, guess what? He had, because it was his mum. He came into the relationship, no woman will ever treat me like that. We're like, together. So we had a lot to work through to get to the place we are now.
It's also that person, like they're there to heal you, because if you're
like there
a mirror and you're there to heal each other. Would you say, having now that you've got this empowering vision, it sounds like you do, like everything you just shared about, and congratulations on all those successes. It looks like there's a bit of momentum there and a bit of a tribe building, and it's really awesome to see. Do you say that empowering vision now is something that you really tag into, keep driving you forward and keeping you onto that fulfillment and happiness that you're feeling right now?
Yeah, totally. And it's interesting because as you say that, it's interesting because I don't have to try and tag into it. Like there's no part of me that ever has to kind of generate any level of motivation around what I'm excited by. Does that make sense?
Getting pulled,
honestly, my biggest issue is actually switching off.
Yeah.
And to be honest, in all fairness, that is a bit of an issue. Like I need to have more downtime for real. But but I do think it's like stages of growth. There's different lessons, and there was definitely a period of my life where I had to generate myself into a vision. But I think once you stay with that long term, if it really is the right kind of aligned path for you, it really gets legs and momentum. And it feels like the vision has got so much momentum around it. Sometimes I'm just like running to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And I'm excited by fueling it, but it's really like a thing of its own. I don't have to like try and like get motivated. If that makes sense.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Can I ask a question too? Now, beautiful Bailey is 17 years old. And what happens when she comes to you now and says, I don't know if she has yet, and maybe it's to come, Mum, my friends are trying this drug. Mum, I'm going to go to this party. Mum, I'm going to go experience this. How from what you've been through in your experiences, how are you going to navigate through that? Because even with a 3-year-old, I already worry about when that time comes when Taj says to me, hey, Mum, my friends have this, they're going to try this. What do you think? How do you be a parent and create that open space for them to come to you, but protect them because you don't want them to go through anything or get addicted? Like, how are you going to approach that? And have you had to experience any of that yet with Bailey?
100%. One of the things, and I just want to like almost do a disclaimer, my parenting's super unique to me and is what has worked for me, but everyone's got to find out what works for them and also what works for your kid, right? But so from my perspective, I made a decision many years ago to truly, truly, truly respect Bailey and her journey and her wisdom, and to be someone who can support that, but not interfere and push my opinions onto her, but to support it. And I felt like when she was younger that the best thing I can do is to be the fullest expression of me, and also like show her my failures. Like, you know, if I'm stuffing up with something, apologize out loud, like really take ownership for myself and talk through my journey and progress. And then to not try and like push my ideas onto her. So like we've had a really, in what our family is, myself, my husband, and Bailey and Zion, we have a really open dialogue. Like everything gets talked through and brought to the table: drugs, sex, everything. And there is nothing Bailey's not allowed to do. So like, for example, even when she was like, I think a week turned 15, and she, like, it really creates really resilient kids. Like, it creates kids that have got a mind of their own, which that in itself in today's world is probably, I reckon, the biggest thing that we need to equip our kids with, is having a mind of their own. And then I think, well, how does a kid have a mind of their own if a parent's constantly telling them what to think? Age appropriate, of course, right?
Totally.
So what I realized is that I wanted Bailey to have a mind of her own, so I have to respect her mind. Yep. And she has to have the experience of really, so yeah, she has had lots of room to make mistakes, and she's made those mistakes, and we've talked through stuff, but nothing to be made wrong, right? So our kids are allowed to swear. Bailey has got a mouth like a trucker. And she's also, and she's so intelligent, and she's also like always the kid with the leadership roles, because she's just got such a mind of her own. Like the other day, something had happened. She was in this leadership meeting at school, and there was a parent who was like really, Bailey did not agree with what she was talking about. So Bailey came home, and so she wrote a letter to the principal and then emailed him, and just like really put out her rationale of why she thought it needed to go in a different direction. It was a thing about values and respect, and her stuff was amazing, you know. So like, I just think she's so well-rounded. She hasn't had to not like kind of like keep parts of herself back because mum and dad won't allow her, but then she will slip out with her friends, right? So she gets to be who she is at home, which means that when she's with her mates and out in the world, she's got a backbone. But yeah, I remember like when she was 15, just turned 15, she flew from Bali to Singapore on her own, and went through immigration, got out in Singapore, got herself in a taxi, got herself to the immigration office, renewed her student kitas, and then flew back to Bali. Wow. And I remember that was like one of those decisions that I was thinking, am I just really taking this whole parenting thing too far? And maybe this is, but she came home and she was just like, kind of her energy was just beaming. Like she got to know herself as someone really strong, you know?
Yeah.
You know, like just recently she came home and she said, look, I'm going to Paris in my next school holidays. And I was like, once again, like, And I was like, okay, cool, honey, you know, so tell us how you're going to get there and what are you going to do? She's like, well, I've worked it out. I'm going to get money through this. So she made this job for herself, and she got clients, and she's earned the money, and she's booked her flights. And yeah, the day after she turned 17, which is in 2 weeks, she's flying to Paris.
Wow.
I'm in the background like this, but
I'm sweating thinking about it.
But the thing is, she's strong, and it's not just that she's been a kid who's been mollycoddled and then she's out off to Paris, right? She's had many experiences that, she's up for the task for sure.
So you say if they do make mistakes, take drugs, have sex at a young age, you've created a space where she can come and say, I'm not saying this, she's done this, but if she said, hey mum, I had sex last night, this is what happened, this is what I felt. There's no judgment from you. She's got that space where she can come to you and talk to you about it, and you help guide her through. You're not saying, don't have sex, don't do this, don't do that. You're allowing her to do things at her own pace. Is that what
I think she's also, I think what I got from it is that you're also being the role model by your actions. Like you're being the best embodiment of yourself, and you're making your own decisions in life which are true to you now, and that's what she's modeling. She's modeling those traits of you, and that she'll form her own opinions of that. She'll form her own identity based off, because you are you and her father are the role models in her life, whether you like it or not. And she's allowed to form her own opinions of who she wants to identify out of that, and you're supporting that in its own right. Would that be true?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I really think that kids have so much more wisdom and knowledge in them, and the ability for moral fiber than what we give them credit for. And I feel, and I've noticed that as like she's been really honored to make her own choices and to really value the choices she makes, she's got such a strong moral fiber. Like she's allowed to do whatever she wants, but most of the time she chooses to study, and she chooses to like really dedicate herself. And then there's times when she doesn't. And, there was one time, she got quite drunk, and then guess who she rang? Mom, I'm quite drunk, come pick me up. Like it was, and then, I hopped into bed and gave her a cuddle and, wiped her head, and in the morning we had a good laugh about it. I said, well, you need some charcoal, and we had a talk about it. And then she's like, God, I'm not drinking that much again. It was just, but she didn't have to hide it. I remember that we weren't allowed to do anything like that, and I was sneaking out the window to do it. And I think it created that separation between, this is who I am to be acceptable, the good girl, the A student, and then this is how I'm really feeling, but I'm not allowed to bring that through because it's actually wrong and it's bad. And it's interesting because I would say that experience gets translated a lot in adulthood, and you see it online as well, where hey, this is who I am, but actually no, in the background, this is actually what I'm experiencing. And I think that can really get installed as kids if we're not letting our kids really be appreciated for everything, saying no. When my kids say no to me, no, I don't want that. Okay, I got that. You know what I mean? And like for even like say my son got pissed off with me this morning, I'm not going to get angry at him because he's angry at me. You know what I mean? Like he's allowed to have his emotions. But it's interesting because and look, hey, I'm not a perfect parent. I want to say that, but it's all learning. Yeah. But on the other side of it, I've noticed that when I'm angry and pissed off, he cuts me a lot more slack. Like he's like, "Are you all right, Mum?" Like, no, I'm kind of feeling a bit stressed. Sorry about that, buddy. And he's like, "Oh, it's all right." Do
you share your challenges with your kids as well, or do you withhold that to protect them?
We totally do, but also there's a level of it's been age appropriate.
Yes.
And also depending, so for example, there were years when we were going through financial stress as we're building up different businesses. We've got 3 businesses now. And so my husband and I made a decision that clearly we weren't ever going to share the financial stress with the kids in the moment, because that would be quite unstabilizing to hear, oh my God, fuck, we're going through financial difficulties, can mum and dad make it,
So we wanted them to
feel safe. Yeah, so we'll tell them, and they know, they've known the things that we've gone through, particularly like relationship wise when we've struggled with things. There was a time a couple of years ago where I asked Hinari to move out, and we lived in separate places on the one big huge property, if that makes sense. We lived in a resort, and we hired one of the other units, and so Hinari lived there. And it wasn't that there was any big issue in our relationship, but I knew that I wanted to grow to this new level, and that it might sound like quite almost like precious that I asked my husband to move out so I could do my own growth work. But the reality was I'd been a mum since 3 weeks after finishing anorexia counselling. I'd never been an adult knowing who I was independently from other people. And so we had talked this through, and I'd said to him, look, I really want to experience this. I feel like there's this new level of me that wants to come out, but I don't actually know how to navigate that in close proximity to to like you and the relationship. Would you mind if we had some space living apart while I become who I'm here to be? And I just love, Hinari was like, let's do that. This is weird, but let's do it.
He honoured
so, we talked through that with the kids, and they really got the context of it. Dad lived like over the fence. And then at night times, like he would send me a message. He's like, you want to date by the pool? And so we would go and meet by the pool and talk things through. And we had really big conversations around who we wanted to be on our own and who we wanted to be within the relationship. So it's kind of like we sort of created a bit of the container to grow into the people that we promised each other that we would be in those big marriage vows that we did all those years ago, but we had no idea like how the hell to pull those off. We had to kind of keep growing into being those people. Yeah.
I love, yeah. And I love that you've highlighted too who you want to be individually and who you want to be as a couple, because I think a lot of couples can get so codependent on each other and just kind of stuck in the relationship and lose themselves in the relationship and lose their own personal vision. And it's okay to have almost not your own life, but kind of your own life with your partner. Do things that light you up, do things that you're passionate about. And when you're lit up and passionate and doing what feels good for you and you bring that light into your relationship, it helps it flourish more.
Totally. And there's actually a whole lot of research around desire in long-term relationships is based on two key things. And I found this really fascinating when I learned it. So desire in long-term relationships is based on one, time apart, like the whole absence makes the heart grow fonder.
I believe that.
So time apart, seeing your partner again after not seeing them for a while, but also the second thing is seeing your partner be at their fullest capacity.
Yes.
So those two components create desire in long-term relationships. So we've put those two things in intentionally. So every month, one of us will live apart for 3 to 4 nights. So we go to a hotel, someone goes to a hotel. And so then that is the moment, like Ken's just been to a hotel. That's the moment where he gets to do hinari things. He gets to be a man. He doesn't have to be like in the role of husband or in the role of dad. And he just gets to do his own thing. And he comes back so sparkly, he just comes back like, and with new insights. And then we have these probably the best conversations when we just come back together.
Yeah.
And then the next month I'll go away on my own, and then I'll feel like amazing and come back sparkly, like excited to be a mum and a wife again.
I can so relate to that.
We're very similar.
So similar. And I feel like we're still navigating through that. And even we have a relationship coach, and I think I'm going to share a little bit of our personal growth at the moment is we met when I was 20 and I'm now 30, and who I was when I was 20 to who I am now as a woman is so different. And I'm still like discovering so much about myself and going, holy moly, I am so different. But Steve's also going through that process of almost divorcing the old marriage and getting to know the new woman that he's with, because it is totally new and it's quite hard sometimes. And what lit me up back then and what I needed back then from Steve is like, whoa, opposite to what I need
opposite,
now.
Yeah, so
it's that transition process. But I'm learning too that time apart and time by myself and time with my friends and living my own, not separate life. I don't like that word, but I can't find another word to describe it. But having my own time to exactly do what you and your partner do, I do come back sparkly and more lit up and more happy and excited to see you and passionate and more touchy and more like the old Ashy, like this
and before the communications between us two, like I would take it as she's trying to be apart, trying to be separate. It wasn't until we had the deep...
I'm not good enough.
Like what's going on. But we were just unconscious, living unconsciously and...
Trying to figure it out. But now we understand and it's scheduling that in, I guess. Like you guys do once a month.
Like I like to get away and have a night by myself,
or
go to a course and do seminars in a different country, or where you'd like to go and connect with your friends and go on a trip.
And even back when I was 20, if he went away, I'd be like, oh, I'm lonely, I need him. Like, how long are you going to be gone for? And now when he goes, I'm like, see ya. Get that time with my son by myself. I get to catch up with girlfriends. I'm recharging my batteries. I'm excited to see him when he comes home. Getting out of your environment and your state can be the best thing. I do believe that space can really bring you back stronger. So I love that you spoke about that. I don't know if we've gone off topic.
Codependence never works. Hey,
no.
It works short term. But long term, for a relationship to thrive, I really believe that you do need that independence as an individual, and then bring that together as a couple. Yeah.
But the way you described it coming back sparkly, I can so relate to that. It's how I feel when I come back. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, this has been a really cool conversation. Now, let's dive into a little bit about your event, which I am so honoured. Like, I voice messaged you on Instagram. I'm like, I'm so honoured to be a part of it. It is called She. I'm a panelist on it, which is a shameless little plug, but I'm just a bit excited. Tell us a little bit about the event She. Why did you want to do this? Where did it come? How long has it been around for? Give us a little rundown about She.
Yeah, so we've been running events now for almost 10 years, and then She is the first of its kind like this. So She is like, it's the absolute dream baby that I've wanted to birth. So She is 3 days, and it is a total game-changing experience on a number of levels. So one, we've got incredible women like you, Ashy, speaking, and we've got Lorna Jane and Naomi Simpson from Shark Tank and Constance Hall, and just epic women who I've seen have really built something that they've been excited by, right?
Yeah.
They've built empires, but they've done it by really being themselves fully. And I just think that that's so damn awesome, because if you look at each of the people who are speaking at She, also different. And that's one of the things that the ethos and the energy of She is about, is celebrating all women to really go for their dreams and really like be unapologetic and pushing play fully. Because I know for myself, I've certainly experienced, as I went through those seasons and then really came into the season of really wanting to be fully pressing play on my dreams, there was a level where I started to feel like, oh, maybe this is too much. Maybe this is dreaming too big. Maybe I should dial this down a little bit, right? So the space of She and the energy of She is full, unapologetic permission to really be who you want to be in the world. While also really, and this is the other part of it, is really appreciating and honouring who you actually are, the journey you've actually been on, how you're custom built for this journey as well. So the 3-day process is actually going to be like a personal development journey we're taking people on.
Yeah.
Like day 2 is going to be a full unpacking of what's been in the blind spot, actually holding people back. We're going to like take it out of the blind spot so people are really clear. It's going to get unpacked leading up to this big, exciting Saturday night. Oh my God, I can't wait. Big release on a Saturday night. Can't tell you what's going to happen, but it's pretty damn exciting.
Yes.
And then Sunday is like, so it's like Friday and Saturday, we're going to be clearing, like almost like clearing the canvas.
Yeah.
Right?
Clearing the closet.
Clearing the closet, exactly. Because when the closet's clear, when the canvas is clear, guess what? Then you get to create what's next.
Yeah.
So then Sunday is all about actually rewriting what this future is that you're stepping into, and then gathering the tools to actually get there. So it's an entire journey, and it's and we've just got such epic women, and I'm so excited, so excited.
So cool. I cannot wait for it. So that's happening August, what was the exact dates again?
August 16th to the 18th.
Yeah, amazing. I'm so excited.
We'll make sure we'll have all those links in the show notes here.
Yes, anyone who wants to follow along with your journey and get to know you and see your awesome content that you put out, we will definitely put all the details below. But thank you so much for your time today.
Your vulnerability is amazing, and you really are an inspirational woman.
And you're real. That's what I really love.
Yep.
You're just real. What you see is what you get. And vulnerability is how we connect on such a beautiful level, and it helps women. You give other women permission to be themselves, and that's really special.
Thank you.
And
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because it was interesting as we were talking earlier about being enough. I realized that because I used to make that wrong as well, like there's nothing magical here. But then I realized, no, I think maybe the magic is just in being myself. And I think for anyone else who's listening to this, is that you've got your own flavor of what that magic is. And if you're trying to be like someone else's magic, you kind of like dump on your own. So just give yourself full permission to be your own is what I want anyone to get out of this conversation. And I want to actually really acknowledge Ashy. Ashy, I've obviously met her just recently, but I've dealt with her and communicated with her team and Ashy behind the scenes quite a bit. And I've got to say, Ashy is the real damn deal. And I just got to say, I've so appreciated getting to know you. You are such an incredibly genuine-hearted woman. And your team it's probably one of the best teams I've actually experienced behind the scenes. And that leadership always comes from the top. So I just want to really acknowledge who you are.
Oh, thank you.
I'll back that up as well.
Oh, thank you guys. That means a lot. It really does mean a lot. Thank you so much. Well, we better wrap this up. And once again, thank you so much for your time. And I cannot wait for August until we rock and roll. Woohoo!
Awesome.
Lovely to meet you.
Cheers, team.
Bye.
See ya. Bye. What an incredible human being. She just doesn't give up on life, does she?
I can't wait to attend the She event. I'm so excited about speaking on one of the panels there. Thanks for listening, guys. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Lessons podcast. We're going to leave all of our guest social media handles below and on our Instagram page. And remember, we'd love to hear from you. So please jump on over to our Lessons podcast Insta page to tell us what you think.
Plus, if you share a screenshot of the episode on your Insta stories and tag our Lessons podcast Instagram, you'll automatically get a 20% discount off the entire range of Hideaway bath and body products, and be entered into a weekly draw for a Hideaway gift pack valued at $75. So, don't miss out.
Don't forget to join us on the Lessons podcast next week for another inspiring guest and fantastic life lesson. If you think you've got a lesson to share, we'd love to hear from you. Hit the link in the description box to get in touch. Bye!